Well, welcome everyone. This is Andy Barbera, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to give you all an overview of how we actually plan the programs for the annual meeting, both the scientific programs and also the postgraduate courses. I know that many of you are new to this process and have a lot of questions and wonder what actually happens in the background that leads to the scientific program with its multitude of speakers, or to the various postgraduate courses, how they're planned, how they're selected, how they're put on. So I'm hoping to give you an overview, and I'm going to be brief, but I want to leave enough time for you all to answer or to ask questions, hopefully that I will answer. And anything that I cannot answer, I am being joined by our education program administrator, Lee Boughton. And Lee is the coordinator for both the postgraduate programs and the scientific programs, as well as the other workshops that we put on throughout the year. For example, the Best of ESHRE and ASRM that we held successfully in New York this year, and also the NICHD workshop on fertility preservation that is going to follow our meeting in Baltimore. So without further ado here, I think that, let me see if I can advance this. Okay. There we go. I've organized this presentation so that first I'll give you an overview of our educational activities, all the different types of credits and constituencies that we have, and then we'll focus on the actual planning of the 2016 postgraduate and scientific programs. I presume that most of you are on this call because you're interested in the planning process that will begin shortly for the 2016 programs. The 2015 programs are actually pretty much set and ready to go to press. So we're not going to really deal with the timelines for the 2015 programs. First question. I know that you all represent a variety of different groups within ASRM, and as you know, we have 28 different groups. We have the 5 affiliated societies, SREI, SRBT, SMRU, SRS, and SART. We have the professional groups consisting of the nurses, the mental health professionals, the legal professionals, and then the practice managers. And then we have the various special interest groups which are organized around specific themes. And these really vary from being very clinical, such as the Pediatric and Adolescent Gynecology Special Interest Group, to the more basic science ones, such as the Regenerative Medicine and Stem Cell Biology Special Interest Group. So let's take a look at some of our educational activities that we currently put on. We have 2 main types of activities. We have the live activities that consist of the postgraduate courses, and then we have the scientific program. And as you know, the postgraduate courses tend to be didactic or hands-on. We're trying to really encourage everyone to incorporate more interactive teaching and learning into their postgraduate courses. So if you're thinking of organizing a course, think of ways that you can actually engage your learners and make them more hands-on or more interactive. In terms of the scientific program, the continuing medical education activities are the lectures, the symposia, and the interactive sessions. And then we have the roundtables and the abstracts. And we're going to be talking about those in some detail later on. I mentioned that we also have the NICHD workshop this year, and we also put on webinars. We had a series of webinars on genetics and reproductive medicine, and in July we hope to be launching a new series of bi-weekly webinars that are going to deal with various topics in reproductive medicine and biology. In addition to the live programs, we also have the online and mobile activities that include repurposed postgraduate courses, the hundreds of freestanding modules that we have in ASRM eLearn, and then we also have the Practice and Ethics Committee documents and the new certificate courses. The nursing certificate course has been very, very successful, with several hundred nurses having completed that and gotten the certificates. And we also have the andrology certificate course and the new embryology certificate course, and these latter two really are taking off. We offer a variety of credits because, as you know, you yourselves are an interdisciplinary group, and we have representatives, members from the various professions in medicine, including physicians who would be primarily obstetrician gynecologists, but also include family medicine physicians and internists. We have the nurses who obtain their nursing continuing education credits through the MPWH, the National Association of Nurse Practitioners in Women's Health. We have embryologists and andrologists who get credits through the American Board of Bioanalysis, which gives peer credits. We have the psychologists who get American Psychological Association credits, the social workers who get continuing education credits from the National Association of Social Workers, and then we have the genetic counselors. So we really give about 7 different types of continuing education credits through ASRM. Now, I'd like to spend a little time on the requirements for a CME activity, in other words, continuing medical education for physicians, because that happens to really be the group or the type of credit that has the strictest criteria. And the other groups are starting to follow. So, for example, the nurses, the American Nurses Credentialing Center and the American College of Pharmacists, they're both starting to adopt the CME guidelines and policies. And for a CME activity, the first requirement is it has to address an educational need, something actually based on gap analysis data where there is actually a documented, published need based on a performance gap or an outcomes measure gap in terms of medical patient outcomes. So these gap analysis data are then used to figure out what kinds of activities we actually need to put on to address the educational needs of our members. And we'll be talking somewhat about the planning process, which is fairly strictly defined. And then, of course, a CME activity has to be free of commercial influence. We cannot have industry employees involved in needs assessment, planning, presentation, or evaluation, and speakers may not receive any remuneration of any type from industry for travel to or participation in the meeting. And planners and speakers are prohibited then from participating in industry events at the annual meeting. So this sometimes creates a problem for speakers because they're planning on getting some supplementary travel funds from an industrial source, and that is prohibited because that then has the potential to compromise their what they say in a particular activity. The first process in defining an activity and planning an activity is to perform a gap analysis and assess the educational need. And I said all CME activities have to address documented practice gaps for learners. And of course, since ASRM is such a multidisciplinary professional society, we have a very diverse group of learners with very, very different gaps in knowledge, competence, and performance. So we conduct a pre-test before every activity to assess the pre-activity competence of our learners before going into the activity. And then the data from the pre-test analysis is then used to actually plan future activities. All CME activities must demonstrate an improvement in either competence, performance, or patient outcomes. And that's the reason that we incorporate clinical case-based questions into the post-tests of all of our CME activities. A change in the pre- and post-test results, not looking at individuals, but just looking in aggregate at the groups, will provide an indication of whether or not there was an improvement in competence. I mentioned that the speakers, planners, must be free of commercial influence or commercial bias. So the first step in assuring this freedom and independence is that all planners and presenters must disclose any commercial and financial relationships with manufacturers or distributors of goods or services used to treat patients. Now, one of the things that we frequently get questions about is, well, I see these people from, a clinical diagnostic laboratory involved in an activity. How come they're allowed to participate and an employee of a pharmaceutical company is not allowed to participate? That's because by ACCME definitions, an industry or a commercial interest does not include hospitals, clinical provider organizations, insurance companies, diagnostic laboratories, or government agencies. So employees of those entities are not considered industry employees. All of the disclosures that come in are printed and made available to all the participants in an activity, and these disclosures are reviewed by a subcommittee of the CME committee to make sure that, in fact, somebody who's speaking, even though they may have a financial relationship with a company that is involved in making goods such as pharmaceuticals used to treat patients, to make sure that, in fact, what that individual is going to be speaking about is not related to what their financial relationship is with the particular company. So that requires a fair amount of diligence on our part. So I'd like to turn now to the process for planning the postgraduate program. And the reason I put 2016 here is that I'm going to show you the timeline for the planning of the programs. And I'm going to be showing you the timeline for the 2016 programs. And by the way, this webinar will be posted on the ASRM website, so you will be able to refer back to it. And I suggest that you really look over this timeline and keep this in mind. The other thing I'd like to point out is that many of you are the education chairs or representatives for your groups this year and will be turning over your responsibilities to someone else next year, all right? Well, by the time you do that, we will probably have most of the 2016 program planned, because we actually have the skeleton program ready by October, or at least ready to invite the different speakers. So we're pretty far along because it's an 18-month process to plan these programs. So the planning process is something that involves many, 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 many people in many different capacities. So we have the Continuing Medical Education Committee, which consists of representatives of the 5 affiliated societies as well as 2 at-large members. Then we have the Postgraduate Program Committee, and then we have the representatives of the affiliated societies, professional groups, and special interest groups. And everyone has their say in developing the postgraduate courses. So the criteria for having a postgraduate course are, first, that a course has to address an educational need that is documented by quantitative data. In other words, the days when we would rely on people saying, oh yeah, I need a course on this or I need a course on that are gone. And the reason is that people tend to say they need courses about the things that they really know the most about and they're really interested in. That's not necessarily, based on educational need. I mean, educational need is when there are data that show that medical professionals, and not just physicians, but the healthcare team, that professionals are not doing what they should be doing to treat particular groups of patients, all right? And I want to emphasize the necessity of addressing the competence and skills of the team. And this is what we call interprofessional education. And so you're going to see more emphasis on that. The specific course objectives, really have to fulfill the need and teach the learners how to do something. And those are the best courses. And so the course proposals that are selected by the Postgraduate Program Committee and then presented to the Board of Directors are those that are really going to be put on by faculty who are recognized as experts in the field and that really teach the learners how to do something. So the process starts in February. So this February, the process has already started, by the way, for 2016. The CME committee reviewed the 2013 and 2014 performance data and the pretest to identify gaps in practice and competence. In March, coming up very soon, will be the solicitation to all of the groups, the special interest groups, the professional groups, the affiliated societies, to propose collaborative interprofessional courses that will address practice gaps. Hopefully practice gaps of the healthcare team, because everything in medicine is a group effort. It's usually not just one person doing something. These proposals then will be submitted to ASRM in June of this year, and the Postgraduate Program Committee then will review and select tentatively the courses that seem to address the most important needs, keeping in mind that we have to address the needs of a variety of healthcare professionals. All right, so we try to get courses that incorporate the physicians, the nurses, the mental health professionals, the managers, the legal professionals, the embryologists and andrologists. These are the kinds of courses that we're really looking for. In September, then, there will be a teleconference for all of the 2016 course chairs to really go over the courses that have been selected and then what will happen next. In November, the course chairs will submit their faculty and budget worksheets, or I'm sorry, those will be sent to the course chairs in November so that they can actually return them to us in December of 2015. And then in 2016, based on the information submitted by the course chairs, we will send the agreements to the postgraduate course faculty, asking them to return them by February of 2016. So then we start the process of preparing the actual courses. The disclosure site launches in March or April, and then in June, the faculty upload their syllabus materials for review by the course chairs, and any faculty in a postgraduate course, any faculty member in a postgraduate course that actually gets his, her, or her PowerPoint or other course materials uploaded by beginning of June gets a $100 bonus, all right, on top of what they're getting to be a participant in a course. The materials are then downloaded here in the ASRM office. They go through a copy editing process, and then in September the corrected syllabi are uploaded again to Freeman Audiovisual, and then we do the online pretest, and then in October we actually have the courses, and then a month later in November we actually do the post-test for CME and CE credits. We do have a template that is on the ASRM website that we ask all speakers in postgraduate course faculty to use so that we have a consistency of format, and we then make those available to the participants in the course, and then we make them available afterwards. We try to repurpose some of the courses so that people who did not have the opportunity to participate in the postgraduate program, maybe they can go and take these courses by purchasing the audio in conjunction with the PowerPoint or with the PDF of the PowerPoint syllabus. All right? So later after the end of this, if you have any questions about that, I'll certainly be happy to answer them. Now I'd like to spend some time talking about the scientific program. And I hope I'm not going through this too quickly, but I really want to leave time for you to ask questions. So let's go now and focus on the planning of the scientific program. Again, the timeline we'll be looking at will be that for the 2016 program. So I mentioned earlier that we have several different types of activities in the scientific program. We have the plenary lectures. These are selected by the president and the scientific program committee chair with the advice and input of all of the members of the society. So suggestions and ideas for speakers are welcome from everyone. And as you know, or you may know, that, for example, this year, the president's guest lecture is going to be Ira Flato of Science Fridays, which is put on by Public Radio International, is broadcast every Friday afternoon over NPR. In addition to the plenary lectures, of which we have 9 in the program, we also have symposia. Now, the symposia are based on suggestions solicited from you all, from the affiliated societies, the professional groups, and the special interest groups. So we encourage you to start thinking about ideas for symposia. And the ones that are going to be selected are going to be those that are interprofessional. Okay, in other words, they deal with medical and scientific problems from a multidisciplinary point of view. And and they address important problems, either scientific problems or clinical problems. And these, when we say clinical problems, I mean this could be a very important clinical nursing problem. It could be a very important clinical mental health problem. Could be an important clinical, medical problem. So, I mean, we're looking at this broadly, all right? And the Scientific Program Committee is going to select those that address educational needs identified by the Continuing Medical Education Committee. Now, we typically have 18 or 19 symposia, including the endowed symposia, the Howard Jones Symposia, the CHA Symposium, the ABOG, Ken Ryan Ethics Symposium, and then we have this year we actually have 7 international symposia put on by our partner organizations such as ESHRI, the Middle East Fertility Society, the Chinese Society of Reproductive Medicine, the Mexican Society of Reproductive Medicine, et cetera, et cetera. And then in addition, to make sure that the nurses, the mental health professionals, and the reproductive managers are adequately represented in the program, we ask them to put on each a symposium on each day of the program. And these groups are very large groups. And when a group reaches a, when a professional group reaches a critical mass of, several hundred professionals, individuals in that particular profession, then, we ask them if they wish to put on activities such as symposia at the meeting. Then we have the interactive sessions. As you know, we've been making a push to try to get these to be much more interactive. So we encourage the use of debates and case presentations and panel discussions and roving microphone formats. And then we have about 21 interactive sessions, 21 or 24. I think this year we actually have 8 each day, so we've got 24 interactive sessions put on by the different groups. And the key here is that they be interactive. We then have the roundtables that are apportioned among all of the affiliated societies, professional groups, and special interest groups. And that means there are 105 of them, 35 each day of the scientific program. And these are presented by ASRM members who are experts in their fields, and we graciously provide them with lunch. So the different activities have different types of compensation, and I'm not going into the compensation because for all the different activities right now, but I'm certainly happy to answer questions about them. But they're different for the different activities, and they're certainly fluid in that they do change. And then we have the abstracts, the scientific abstracts. So this year, all of the abstracts will be in the morning, okay, in that 11:15 to 12:45 slot. So the abstract sessions will, which include the scientific program prize paper sessions, one on Monday and one on Tuesday, will be at the same time as the other oral abstract sessions, and there will be 14 on Monday, and then 15 on Tuesday and 15 on Wednesday. Okay, so there will be 276 oral abstracts presented, and these are programmed by topic, not by group, and they're selected based on the score, and the abstracts are actually scored by the affiliated societies and professional groups, and the top 276 abstracts will be presented orally, and then we will be increasing the number of posters this year from 600 to approximately 750. So we have approximately 3 times as many posters presented as we do oral papers, okay? And then, like the postgraduate program, the scientific program is a multifactorial process involving many people. And it's important that when you leave your position from program planning in October, that if you are not the person for 2016, that you pass this information on and make sure that both member services and Lee Boughton in the education department have the contact information so that your particular group is not left out of the program. We try to make sure that everybody's included, but we don't always know who the person is to contact. But the first step, again, with the planning process is for the Continuing Medical Education Committee to identify the practice gaps and the corresponding educational needs. The members of the Scientific Program Committee participate in those deliberations, and then they are able to go back and have more in-depth planning discussions. Now, the 3 successive chairs of the Scientific Program Committee are the ones who form the core planning committee. They're then assisted by 3 ad hoc consultants who are selected by the president to address areas that are not represented by these 3 people on the core committee. So we try to get, if, for example, if there's not anyone with a basic science knowledge, then we try to get somebody with a basic science knowledge on this committee. And then we have the representatives of the 5 affiliated societies and the 4 professional groups. And so the whole committee then meets at the annual meeting. So the 2016 program committee, which includes the 3 successive program chairs, the 3 ad hoc consultants, and the 9 representatives of the affiliated societies and the professional groups, that committee, the full committee, will meet to thrash out a program on Sunday afternoon at the annual meeting. So in Baltimore, that group will be meeting starting at about, I think it's at 11:30 Sunday morning. They'll have lunch and then spend several hours trying to develop a program based on all of the suggestions that have been received for symposia and interactive sessions. And that's really what they focus on. And again, the symposia and interactive sessions, for which you'll play a very important important role in the planning, address educational needs that are based on documented quantitative data. And again, interprofessional education is encouraged to address real needs. And you're all experts in your fields. You know where there are team deficiencies in the particular field. All we ask is that you help come up with data actually demonstrating that, so that we don't just rely on the pretest data of clinical cases. So you really do play an important role in this whole planning process, a much more important role than you probably imagined. And then you want to get faculty members who are recognized as experts. And again, the interactive sessions really do have to be interactive between the presenters and the audience. So to look at the timeline, February of 2015, the CME committee reviewed the test data from 2014 to identify performance gaps. They then in May will have a teleconference to pin down the educational needs. In July, the scientific program committee will have a teleconference to look at those needs and kind of brainstorm to come up with a program. They then in July will solicit suggestions from all the groups for plenary lectures, symposia, and interactive sessions. And then the meeting of the whole committee will be in October. In November, the invitations will be sent to the speakers. And in December, nominations for roundtable presenters will be solicited from all of the 28 groups. In January, end of January, beginning of February, out will go the call for abstracts and videos. That will be posted on the ASRM website and e-blasted to everyone. In January, we ask for the nominations for roundtable presenters. In February, the beginning of February, the abstract and video submitter launches. And then in March, we solicit nominations for reviewers. So you all can help by trying to recruit abstract reviewers. Lee will be sending out some information shortly about what the time frame is going to be for review. The reviews have to be done quickly because of the fact that we publish our abstracts with the September issue of Fertility and Sterility. Even though that's not printed, it still has to be published electronically, and that's a rather extensive editing process. And then in February of 2016, the CME committee will then meet to actually review what happened, and we have then in April of 2016, the needs assessment, learning objectives, test questions are due to ASRM. The abstract video submitter closes in May, and then it's in May that the abstract review and scoring opens and closes. We make sure that reviewers have 2 consecutive weekends in order to review the abstracts. And we try to make it so that there are not any more than 50 abstracts in any particular abstract review group. It really varies from year to year. We never really are able to completely predict how many abstracts there will be in a group. And then abstract notification occurs around the 3rd week in June. In September, the PowerPoints for the scientific program are uploaded to Freeman Audiovisual, and then in October we have the annual meeting. So that is an overview of the process. I mean, that's really a quick overview in a nutshell, and both Lee Boughton and myself are always happy to assist you, to provide you with supplementary information that might help you, the summaries of the processes for planning, the requirements for an activity, the timelines. All of this information is posted on the ASRM website, and it's available at asrm.org/presenters, and that's also where this PowerPoint presentation will be, and that's where all of the information is pertaining to the annual meeting. Well, I thank you all for all of the effort that you put in to really making the educational programs of ASRM a success, because ASRM really relies on the efforts of so many of you volunteering your very, very valuable time to help educate and enrich your colleagues. So thank you very much. You cannot imagine how much we appreciate your efforts.